Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. I'm Richard Dugan, your host. Hey, thank you for being with us. We love bringing these programs to you. I get very excited when I know I've got an interview coming up and I'm going to get a chance to talk to somebody extraordinary who has been doing things in their lives to make a difference, both in their lives and the lives of the people around them, as well as through programs such as this, where we're looking for choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Sundays at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m., Monday mornings at 1 a.m., and a special edition of Tell Me Your Story, 9 a.m. Wednesday mornings on this fine station, as well as podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, and other locations you folks are reposting our interviews to, and thank you for doing that. Keep doing it. I'm the only one that's doing all of this posting. So if you can expand my reach to our programs, thank you, thank you, thank you. We are also on YouTube, where you can watch these interviews. Go to the Tell Me Your Story channel, or Richard Dugan, and look for the guy with the hat, and we will be there. You can watch us. We'll have great information, just like in the podcast, just like in the broadcasts. We also ask that if you can do so, we could use your support financially. That's why I have a PayPal account. It's for your security as well as mine. I like to refer to PayPal as the middleman that helps to keep track of things and helps to keep me secure, but also helps to keep you secure. So that's the reason why we do that. And we also ask you to participate in this, the Decade of Perfect Vision, the 2020s, where we ask you to go within and listen to that still small voice in that quiet, peaceful place that is within you, and spend some time there getting to know the most important person, if you will, in your life, which is you. Our program today, I think you're going to enjoy. I have a funny feeling that our guest titled his book just so he could hear us in the broadcast industry utter the phrase, give a damn. But we can say that on the radio and on television, as well as in podcasts and video casts. And my guest is Mark Lewis, author of Give a Damn. It is the ticket to cultural change. And Mark, all the way down there in Louisiana, I think that's how you pronounce it now. Welcome to the program.
Hey, Richard, thanks for having me. I look forward to being with you.
Well, this is going to be very interesting. And I think what I'm going to do is tie this in a little bit to, I'd like to talk a little bit about the concept, and I'm sure you've heard of this, which I don't think is necessarily what your book and what the work that you're doing through this book is about, but I still wanted to bring it up just because of the title and the subtitle. You're familiar with the phrase cancel culture, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This has nothing to do with that. This actually has to do with the word that's coming to mind is promulgate. I don't know why, it's just there, but it's to foster culture, to support culture, to encourage a change. It's not trying to undo or erase or hide or anything of that nature. It's trying to foster a sense. When someone says to me, well, those people, they're taking away my culture, I said, well, I don't understand. How could they do that if you let them do that? What are you doing to preserve your culture? That kind of thing. Can you give me maybe just a quick synopsis from your perspective on how you see that going on, especially in this country?
Yeah, you make really good points. When I think about culture, I really think about mindset. When we think about where we were 40 or 50 years ago, that mindset is completely different today than it was then. And that mindset has changed based on a number of factors. One, probably being at the top of the list, is technology. So instead of us being face to face, instead of we send text messages, and there's a lot of communication that is lost between technology what it was 50 years ago and technology what it was today. So the way I see it is that our culture has changed to more of a self-centeredness versus a selfless type of culture. And there have been so many factors that have caused this. And we need to, what I think, a lot of people don't do this, we need to look at other people's perspective instead of just focusing on our own perspective. And when we understand other people's perspective, we can communicate and get along better. And I think that's part of the problem for today's society.
Well, I heard a story just as I was coming in to do this program that the airlines have reported that as of our conversation here, over 2,500 incidents of violence on airlines. 1,900 of them were due to the issue of wearing a mask. And this raises something I've brought up many, many times, talking about changing of mindset. I've heard this constantly over the last 16 months, 18 months, whatever. They're taking away my individual constitutional right by telling me that I have to do this and that and the other thing. I have to wear a mask and I have to stay 6 feet apart and I have to wash my hands and blah, blah, blah. And I have to get vaccinated and so forth. And of course, I've made the reference to the lines in the Declaration of Independence that say, promote the general welfare and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. And asking those people who, and again, I'm not arguing with them, I'm asking them to consider, how do you balance your individual rights with those two lines? And they think that their individual rights are being taken away. And I say, look, I have the same constitutional right as you do, but it's not being taken away from me. Guess what? I'm exercising it by focusing right now, especially right now, on those two lines, promoting the general welfare and securing the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Now, if that's a living document, if that's a sacred document to you, and I'm sorry, the Declaration of Independence is part of that document, even though it may not be law, it's still part of that document. And so it's still, to me, it holds just as much weight as the official Constitution, the Articles and the Amendments, the Bill of Rights and Amendments. So to me, that is part of and I've never really been of that attitude of the individualist and, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I haven't really had to change my perspective, although I have had to listen to and take in other people's perspective on this. Your thoughts?
Well, it's funny because what happened is everybody is now internalizing something and they don't realize what effect your actions may have on other people. Okay, so therefore you're taking this away from me. But the fallacy in that is it's not that I'm taking things away from you. I want you to be concerned about your effects and what it may have on other people. It's not about you. It's about other people. So if you flip-flop this, and let's say that someone didn't want to wear a mask, and would they wear a mask if they knew that they had COVID, but it was somebody real important to them? They wouldn't want to transmit their potential COVID, whatever, to the person that they love. But when we get outside our own internal domain, and there's a big situation which causes selfishness. When we start thinking about things that would affect us, we can internalize things, then we typically give a damn because we don't want that effect to have on our family or friends. But once we get outside our own domain name, people that we don't know, we have a different perspective, and therefore we think our rights are being violated. That's the fallacy with today's individualism. It's not about you, it's about what effect you have on other people, whether it be getting sick or anything that might relate to something that might affect them in some way, in a negative way. That's the fallacy. We're not trying to take your personal rights. It's what you need to internalize to make sure you do what's right and to help other people. And I have all kinds of statistics. When you do that, when you think about other people and you give, guess what happens? You live longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're internalizing, there's less stress, there's all this thing kind of goes away. And so that's the fallacy with that individualistic, you're taking rights away. It's not about that, it's about your effect and what it may have on other people. And people forget that.
Yeah. It's interesting too. I also, and I myself, just as a point of reference for you, our listeners have heard this hundreds of times that I've worked 15 years at a Christian radio station back in the 80s, early 90s, the heyday of televangelism. And obviously, I would hear constantly about how this country was founded on a Judeo-Christian ethic. Well, when you start talking about freedoms, but then you start mixing that in with the Christian doctrine or faith or the message, if you will, I always interpreted it this way. It's God's way or the highway. Okay, you have a choice. Okay, it's God's way or the highway, which means you don't have any freedom. You either do it God's way or you're out on your ass. Okay. Well, it's like, okay, if you truly believe what you believe as a person of faith, you don't have any freedom. You gave it up when you chose to follow God. Okay. Yeah. Now that's an extreme perspective that I'm taking, but that would be my takeaway at one level. At one level, we still have choices, and that's part of what this program is about, giving people choices and knowledge of those choices. We were given brains by the good Lord to process, to think logically, to imagine, to create. Okay. And who knows, maybe all of those creative thoughts, for example, they're coming in from the Almighty, from the Supreme Being, whatever term you wish to use. So it all depends on your perspective. And that's really what you're talking about here, because there are so many other perspectives when it comes to faith on this planet. When you talk with people, and I know that the past 18 months have been a little difficult because we haven't been able to interact in the same way in a big room. Now, right now you're sitting in an empty room with nothing in it because you're in the midst of a transition, a move. But I'm pretty sure that you used to, pre-2020, you used to speak in front of large groups of people.
Sure.
And each one of them had a different perspective when it came to, let's just say, their faith, who or what they believe in. I have to, what comes to mind right now is George Carlin and his little shtick on how he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't worship God. He worshiped the sun, okay, because he's prayed to God and nothing's happened. He doesn't pray to the sun, but the sun gives him everything he needs to sustain his life, okay? And that was one of the things and there are people who are sun worshipers, S-U-N worshipers. Okay, that's fine.
Sure.
But it just seems to me that we were given this capacity, okay? Because as far as I know, I didn't create myself, all right? Now, that's as far as I know. Who knows? I may find out somewhere down the road here. I may tap into something. This is, Richard, you did this, the phrase, we create our own reality, okay, is becoming more and more true. And I think it's because of what you said earlier about how we're beginning to understand, and we need to understand, but I think we're beginning to understand, those who are open to it, that I don't just create around me the things that I want. Because I affect other people energetically, biologically, physically, verbally, visually, et cetera, I'm creating my reality around me.
You bring up a couple of points regarding religion, and everybody has a different perspective with religion, and there's not one that's right, not one that's wrong, because that's the way people believe on it. But there are two things that came up in this. There was a study by Ohio State University, and they went and looked based on the obituaries. They came up with a study, and the people that are more religious, actually live 4 years longer than those people who were not religious. Now, you ask that question, well, why? Well, I think there's a couple reasons. One is when you believe in God or a mentor or something, you have this sense of security, which causes less stress in the body. And stress is the most detrimental effect to the human body than anything else in this world. The more stress you have, the more your body degrades and all that kind of thing. But you have this gift of religion that you have a God that you can relate to and that you feel comforted by that. There's a certain comfort level of doing that. But here's the thing. And then when I do my speeches, I ask this question. I go and ask everybody in the audience, I go, why are you here? Why did God put you on this earth? And if you don't believe in God, why are you here? How did you get here? Oh, they say, well, I was born. And so I don't believe that. I think you're here for a purpose. And 99 out of 100 people can't answer that question. They don't know. Why am I here? Why did God put me on this earth? So my answer to that question is this. God put me on this earth to serve others. And by serving others, I serve myself. But people get it reversed. They have to say, well, if I do this, then I should get and expect something in return. And that's the fallacy. Just by nature, you're going to get, the more you give, you're going to get in return. But people can't expect it. It will come. Don't expect it. And, the miracles will happen. And it's a really interesting concept because people can't answer that question. It's really bizarre that when I ask that question, they can't answer it.
It is a very unusual in that respect, and yet they have certainties on so many other things. They absolutely know that there is a God. They absolutely know that there is a heaven and hell. They absolutely know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But when it comes to a question like that, which seems to me, in one sense, rather paramount, we ask some very pointed questions on this program that I'm not asking from the standpoint of, tell me the truth. Tell me that this is fact. No. There are certain things that are, I almost want to say, beyond subjective. They're evolving. As a matter of fact, the word behind you, evolve. I believe that's the word behind you.
Evolve, yes.
And then if I'm not mistaken, that's Media AI.
Yes, evolvemedia.ai is the company. Yeah.
Well, pardon me. One of the things that is so interesting to me is one of the phrases that was given to me as a 21-year-old who just getting into this business, just learning how to do interviewing and so forth, thinking that I knew so much, and I had only been on what I referred to as my search since I was 17 at that point. And someone said to me, Richard, it is better to begin in doubt and end in certainty than begin in certainty and end in doubt. And when I chuckle, but there's also a little bit of sadness in this. When I hear of certain individuals who have had these staunch positions for decades and they pass away, and I remember when Jerry Falwell passed away, the first thing that came to my mind, and I actually said it, I says, well, at least now he knows the truth. And the reality is we can know the truth right now if we would do what I'm encouraging people to do, and that is to go within and listen to that still small voice. Now, when I say we will know the truth, as the Bible says, and it'll set us free, I'm not talking about the truth about humanity or about global warming or political stuff or any of that. I'm talking about, you'll know the truth about you. Talk to me about the personal relationship that we have with one another, with ourselves, with self, small s, and how important that is in this process of fostering this concept you talk about in Give a Damn about cultural change.
Well, when you think about that internally, and I always have to be constantly reminded because we do have this voice inside us. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I always ask myself this question: what is the right thing to do? And you're always going to get that answer. You may not like the answer, to be honest with you, but you should follow that. But a lot of times we don't. And the reason why we don't is because we can justify in our mind to do the wrong thing in order to make it right. Now think about that. We justify it in our mind. Even though it's wrong, I can justify it as being right, and therefore it's okay. And that's the fallacy. Like, for instance, I make this analogy. For instance, let's say you're in a very bad situation and with a possible, I don't know, loved one or whatever, and you do something really horrible to that person, but you know it's the wrong thing to do, but it's a revenge thing. So you say, okay, well, they did this to me, and therefore I can do that to them, even though it's wrong. So you're justifying something that you in your mind know is wrong, but you justify it as being right. That's where people need to start thinking. And it's a lot of times what we don't do is we react before we think. We need to step back, and I always ask myself, what would Jesus do? Well, that's an easy answer, right? So, but it's very difficult because we sin all the time, right? And so we gotta, instead of just reacting and not thinking, we gotta think before react and do the right thing. That's such a critical thing in today's society. It's like this, Richard, all these people, when we had people were upset about the racism and they were destroying property, right? They were just going around. So my question to you would be that, let's say you're all mad and you go to this property and it's your father's store. Are you going to go and destroy that? Absolutely not, because you don't want your father to be affected, because you internalize something to affect you. But if it's somebody else, that's okay. They can get over it. Like, oh, they're rich. They got all this money, so therefore they can handle all it. That's the wrong way to do things. It's so hard because people get involved in this, what they call herd mentality, and therefore they go with the herd.
It's interesting when you put that out there, because the first question that comes up, and this isn't just in those situations that you've just described, where they're upset and they go out and they destroy property, but it's also on radio and television in particular, but also in print, on the internet too, where people are just, they're railing. Now, I saw this in the 80s and 90s on televangelist television and radio, and I was sort of perpetuating that by working there, but, I wasn't creating the content. And I would listen to them just go off the rails on a particular subject. And some of them were focused on that same subject for years. And of course, as time went on, I said to myself, and sort of said to the speaker or the TV screen, me dost think thou protesteth too much. And I interpret that as, you better be careful, because what you are going on and on and on and on about, you're gonna get caught in yourself. The net you are casting is going to catch you. And that's what happened. But the other phrase that has come up more in the last few years, especially hearing all of the stuff. Now, when I was working for a station in the early 2000s during the George Bush Jr. administration, the two terms, I was working for Air America Phoenix. And of course, very progressive, and their cause was basically to get him out of office and this and that and the other thing, similar to what went on in these last 4 years under the old presidency and administration. I couldn't get on that bandwagon. I had no problem producing whatever they wanted to produce, doing the programming, et cetera, et cetera. I loved doing that, but getting on that wagon, I just couldn't do. So now, over the last 5 or 6 years, as I've been hearing all of the stuff going on and people complaining and complaining and complaining about the problems, I think about the problems they're complaining about. I hear the words they're saying, and the only thing that I can think of to respond with is, how is what you're doing helping? How is it solving the problem that you are talking about, that you're moaning and groaning and complaining about? And it's the same thing with people who go out and destroy. You're upset about, and we'll just use the term racism, or a marginalization, okay? To use a really broad brush stroke, marginalization of whatever category you want. How is destroying property, yours or anybody else's, how is that helping? Is that solving the problem? Tell me how that solves the problem or even contributes to a solution.
You're really right about that. And what people need to ask is this question. I learned this probably over the last 4 years. What is the upside to what I'm going to do? what's the upside? If there's no upside, what's the point in doing it? And therefore, what's the upside of going and destroying property? Well, there's no upside to that. It only makes things worse. So this society today dwells on the problem so much, and they don't look for finding solutions. They got to get past that stage. And so they have to give a damn about what do we need to do to solve the problem? What's the upside? If anybody listening to this program today could just ask themselves this question, what's the upside to what I'm doing? And if there's none, don't do it.
Mark Lewis is my guest. We're talking about Give a Damn, the ticket to cultural change. We're kind of talking about a lot of different things here. And you know, Mark, I encourage people, of course, to go to your website as well as giveadamnbook.com, where they can get a copy of the book. But you also have an additional website as well for your business. We're going to talk about that in just a moment as well. I actually have a solution to every problem that every person has with whatever it is they're having a problem with. Okay. Now, I'm going to say up front that you and nobody listening is going to like my solution. Okay. That isn't the point. My solution is not a solution that we want to. I don't even like my solution. But the difference between me and other people is I'm offering a solution. And just basically, I'm just going to cut right to the chase. All right, we have the technology available on this planet. My solution is, lost you?
Yeah, hold on.
Go ahead. Just lost your video.
Yeah, everything just fell on the floor.
Oh my.
Yeah, I lost, hold on. I lost my power to my computer. Hold on. Sorry about that. This is the beauty of technology and the problem with having, sorry about that. I'm looking for my, here we go. Okay. Hopefully. You see me? Here we go.
All right.
There we go. Sorry about that. My computer fell. I'm working on a very small table, so I apologize for that.
All right. We'll pick it up from there in 3, 2, 1. My solution is this. We have the technology, okay? We blow up the earth, okay? We blow up the earth. We've got the technology. We can do it. And now nobody has any more problems. Do you like that solution? Do I? Of course not. Of course not. That's not evolution. That's not evolving. That's not raising the consciousness of the planet and making things better for everyone. It's solving all of our problems, but that's no solution. So, but again, my point is, hey, look, I offered one. What's yours? What's your solution?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm coming from that standpoint.
So I do have a solution.
Yes, sir.
But it's going to take many, many years. And the solution is here. It's in our mind. And our mind is, what are we going to do to be able to make society better for everybody?
Thank you.
It's not about you. It's about what I can do for others. And the more we think along those lines, we don't have to have one person win 100% and the other person gets 0. And that's the problem with government. It's me, heads I win, tails you lose. That's government. That's politics. And that's wrong. And nothing typically gets done. That's the ego-centered driven economy that we have that comes from government. Democrats and Republicans. Look, I do a speech, Richard. I go out and say, tell me, are you Democrat or Republican? And nobody wants to tell me. You know why? Because as soon as you say who you are, you're going to be put in a box and you can't think outside that box. And that's the problem with today. It's going to take a mindset change from the older generation, but it starts with our kids. We need to teach them about morals, respect, responsibilities, please, thank you, excuse me. They're not getting it. It's become self-driven, and our kids are our future. How do we get them to change?
Yeah.
it's I'm not going to be around long enough to be able to see it, but I'm working on it. That's the give a damn philosophy, the ticket to cultural change. It makes life so much better for everybody.
And that's your legacy. That's the legacy, the perpetuation. You're going to replicate to others this concept, this mindset. And so am I through this program. Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World. We're talking with Mark Lewis, and we're talking about giving a damn. And please get a copy of his book. I think you'll be very, very fascinated by it. And the other aspect of it too is I love what Will Rogers once said. He said, I would never join a political party because I would never join an organization that would have me as a member. words to that effect.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. And I don't necessarily feel that same way, although I do remember an incident where I was actually talking with a politician here in Santa Barbara. It was shortly after I had moved here back in 2006, and I was producing one of the programs, and the gentleman came in and we were chatting a little bit, and I says, yeah, I will never run for public office. Now, I didn't know he was a politician at the time. I will never run for public office because I have too much integrity. And it's like, and then I found out, oh man, he and I were good friends. We are not politically on the spectrum, on the same place on the spectrum, but we have very good conversations. And I say good, not heated. They're really good, constructive conversations. Because I understand where he's coming from. But the thing that bothers me about these divides, whether they're political, religious, economic, no matter what categories you want to throw out there, is that it's almost as if I could just get rid of the other side, the world would just be perfect. And the other side feels the same way, or at least that's the perception, that if just whichever side you're on, if the other side would just go away, right, or if they would just do what we want them to do. And then there's that other aspect of it too, especially talking about politics, Mark, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I was chatting with another individual, and I consider myself, I don't even like to call myself an independent, even though that's probably the best term to say. I don't adhere. Now, some people say, well, no, you sound awful progressive. I said, well, maybe so on some issues. Give me an issue. We'll talk about it and you can make your own mind up, but that's where I stand. I said to him, first of all, because he was always railing against the other side. I says, first of all, don't you think you owe the other side a debt of gratitude? You should be thanking them, because if it wasn't for them, you'd have nothing to talk about on your program. Right? That's number one. And number two, you say that they are the problem. Okay. But I say that it's not, they are not the ones responsible for making the choices and changes and passing the laws and so forth. This is on you, because you didn't get your people out in the sufficient numbers to elect your people to sit in those chairs and make those decisions. It's not their fault. It's yours. And again, whichever side you're on, and the pendulum keeps swinging back and forth, and that's just the way it is.
You made a really good perceptual point that a lot of people missed, I think, in this conversation. When you have your conversation with your political guy and you are on two different opposite ends of the spectrum, you still could have a conversation. You might not have agreed to something, but you probably could have come to some agreement where you won a little bit and he won a little bit, and there was a middle road. We don't see that in today's government. And that's the issue. People missed. You made a great point that people didn't get. We had a good conversation. We didn't necessarily agree on everything, but we got to the point where we could have a conversation. Yeah. And that's the critical point that you don't see in government at all today. And I want to make sure that people got that message. Even though you were on different opposite ends of the spectrum, you still were able to talk, have a good conversation, and you could have gotten something done. You know what? It's all based on respect for the individual and their viewpoints and understanding their perspective. And again, their perspective versus your perspective, instead of shutting that right in half. And people do that all the time. Oh, you can't possibly be right. It's not the way it works.
The book is entitled Give a Damn. Mark Lewis is my guest. We're talking about cultural change, the ticket to cultural change. And you know, it's fascinating to me to have these conversations, even though you and we probably agree more than disagree on any given perspective. The whole point is that we're having this conversation, and then that's one of the reasons I love doing these programs, is for the conversation. But the fairness doctrine, for example, I'm sure you're probably familiar with what that was.
Right.
And Ronald Reagan, back in the 80s, early 80s, he deregulated the Federal Communications Commission to the extent that he eliminated several of the licenses, one of which I was applying for and wanted so badly. I wanted that thing up on the wall, that certificate. And all I have is this little postcard now. But he also eliminated the fairness doctrine. Now, a lot of people don't know what the fairness doctrine is. And basically, to sum it up, it's if you are going to talk about a subject, okay, then you have to be willing to have, you must have opposing views. You must talk about it from as many of the different perspectives as there might be, if you're able to do so. It's kind of like in political ads and things of this nature. You have to, if you interview, for example, a politician, and this is still part of the law, then you have to at least offer to all of the other candidates for that office an opportunity to be on the program. Now, 99.9% of the time, they decline, right, because it's not their echo chamber. But the fairness doctrine is just that, carrying both sides of an argument. And I have believed in that from the very beginning. And it was eliminated. Well, I was having a conversation with I don't think he would refer to himself as a conservative per se. He very open-minded young man, 23 years old, reads. I asked him, because he is a very conservative individual. I says, have you ever read a book by someone you disliked or whose views were totally opposite yours, you disagreed with? He said, oh yeah. He told me he says he read Mein Kampf. He read the Marxist Manifesto. He read, he's read a lot of these very totalitarian types of authors and their books down through the last century or so, right? Which I was really impressed with. I said, I applaud you for your, and he says, I've even read Mein Kampf twice. Now, that's not to say that he agrees with it, but he sees things in there that I don't want anything to do with that. And I'm just reminding myself that I don't want anything to do with that kind of thing. So I asked him point blank, I says, so you familiar with the fairness doctrine? He was not. I explained it. I said, would you be willing, based upon our current era of polarity, era being going back to the 1980s into the 90s and so forth to the present, do you think that maybe that should be put back in to law, that broadcasters and so forth couldn't do much about the internet, but at least FCC regulated, should be put back in? I was shocked. He said yes. Now, I asked a libertarian about, they said, oh no, I don't want the government telling me what I can and cannot talk about. And it was like, well, that's not the point. And the person missed the point. And that's part of what this program is about. I've had atheists on this program. I've had Jews. I've had Scientologists. I've had folks from what I would call the lineage of Sri Yukteswar Paramahansa Yogananda. Paramahansa's book is my metaphysical primer that I read when I was 16, 17 years old. I've read it hundreds of times since. I've had a wide and diverse group of people on this program. And I had one gentleman who, after sharing my perspective, he says, well, that's interesting, but you know, let me share you my perspective on that. And he shared it, and I listened, and I responded, well, there goes another one of my grass huts up in flames. And I will tell you, I am willing to burn them all. Because again, it's better to begin in doubt and end in certainty than to begin in certainty and end in doubt.
Very good points. And again, it's all about perspective thinking, understanding what the other side is discussing and having that perspective, but not being defensive and saying, well, your perspective is totally absurd. Why would anybody think that way? And that's where you shut down the selfishness. That's where the selfishness comes in. We can't open our minds up. We need to open there's probably something in some religion or another perspective that you probably do agree with, but it's not 100% shut down, right? it's like, I know my wife was, when I do a little presentation, you talk about all these different religions, you know, Christianity, Buddhism, all this stuff. And I go, well, you know, some of these religions, they don't teach kindness. My wife says, yeah, they all teach kindness. All of them do. I said, well, why do they do all these bad things? And it's just a different perspective. They look at things differently than we do. And they do teach, but we got to open ourselves up. That's the biggest problem with today's society. We shut our minds down to other people's perspective thinking, and therefore it's wrong. If we don't believe it, it's totally wrong. And that's just not the mindset that we need to have today. And guess what happens? We turn it down. There's an argument. Everybody gets bent out of shape. These things blow right up. And next thing you know, there's killings and all these things that go on because they can't understand.
Yeah. You know, and that's the reason why we have events like the insurrection. That's what it's going to be called now. You've got Pearl Harbor Day. You've got the assassination of Kennedy and Martin Luther King. You've got the resignation of Richard Nixon. You've got the shooting of Reagan and Ford, and the beginning of Gulf War #1 in the early 90s with George Sr. And all of these mile markers, 9/11. The Great Recession of 2008. You've got, and now you've got the insurrection of 2021.
Yeah.
And I find that it's one thing to have a perspective, but it's another thing when you are faced with the actual facts about something. Now, that doesn't mean you still can't have your perspective.
Right.
How can one ignore the facts? I remember a story I read about this new form of math. It was called whole math. Now, you and I would sit there and we would say, okay, Mark, what is 2 + 2? What's 2 + 2, Mark?
4.
Okay, but in whole math, so Mark, what is 2 + 2?
4.
Let me check with the rest of the class and see if they agree with you. We're going to decide what 2 + 2 is. That was whole math. We were going to decide, and my first thought was, yeah, we would have never even gotten off the ground to go to the moon with whole math. Never would have happened. Now, why they call it whole math, I do not know. But that happens to be one of the aspects of perspective versus fact. You know, I was taking some black and white pictures back in 79, 80 when I was taking a photography class in college of an accident in an intersection. And I was trying to move around as carefully as possible, getting different pictures. I was just doing it for me. And it reminded me of that old saying about you can have 10 different people watching a car accident. You're going to get 10 different answers or perspectives, which is why I was taking the pictures. But when you take a look, for example, because I brought up the insurrection. You take a look at the video and somebody made the comment, look, if I was looking at that event, I would say it was just a bunch of tourists. Look at how they walked nice and calmly along the stanchions and dividers, looking at all the statues inside. Yeah, but that's only a very tiny part of the video. When have I ever seen a tourist going and breaking out the windows from the outside, crashing through doors, shooting, and on and on and on? Is that still a group of tourists? I mean, to me, there is no other perspective other than that was a violent event, just to put it simply.
Yeah.
And you don't have to speak specifically about that, but using that as the example of perspective versus fact.
Oh, I agree with you 100%. Facts are easily justifiable, right? Perspective thinking or opinions are the opinions. But you bring up a really good point on this, and it relates to somewhat, it's in the book. Today, people, I always ask this question, what's common about common sense? It's that it's very uncommon today, right? Yeah. Common sense today is very uncommon, meaning something as simple as what you just described, people can blow it out of proportion, but it's easy to say, well, this is what the video says. I mean, it's easy. Common sense tells you this. When people try to get outside of that's when they start justifying in their mind that something else is really happening when it's really not. And that's the problem with today's society. Yeah. The justification in our mind that something is right when it's wrong is a huge problem.
There would be those who would take the perspective, and again, I do not mean any disrespect to anybody. Hitler was nothing more than Ebenezer Scrooge quoting the line from the Charles Dickens book, it is better to reduce the surplus population, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's all that was. We were just reducing the surplus population. Not a big deal. That's what genocide is. It's just reducing the surplus population. It's just a matter of perspective. And like you just said, it's like, wow, we will justify any action by minimizing it,
right,
in that respect. And how can one change? Now, it has been said in military conflicts over the centuries, it is always the victor that writes the history. But that doesn't mean that there hasn't been a history written by the other side, by the losers. It's right. Just that maybe it hasn't been found. And now we're starting to uncover. I read an article just the other day regarding Christianity, and that there was a massive propaganda war, as we would call it today, going on in the second and third centuries. Well, we know who won the war.
Right.
Okay. But that was what was going on. There was a fight for the minds, if you will, the hearts and the souls of the people by those who disagreed with the church's stance. And then, of course, there was the church that just, pounded. And they won. Talk to us about that aspect of giving a damn and the ticket to cultural change.
Well, you bring a point on here, and I make this point when it comes to trying to force your beliefs on somebody. When you try to force your beliefs, let's say someone, here's an example. It's in my book. There is a small town in Louisiana, Slidell, and at the top of the book, at the top of the court system, it says a plaque that says, "In God We Trust." And that's been up there for 30 years. And all of a sudden, someone looks up there and says, "That's offended me." Well, it's been up there for 30 years. It's not designed to offend you. And now people are taking things personally as if like it's against them. And by doing so, they get offended. And then you get all these people saying, yeah, that's the right thing to do. We got to take it down. And there was so much pressure to take that down that the ACLU got involved, and it said, "In God We Trust." And what happened was, Richard, eventually they took it down. Now, my point on this is that if you don't like it, you don't have to look at it. In God We Trust, it's not there to offend you. You shouldn't take it personally. Yeah. But if I were to take a Bible and just try to shove it in your face, that's offensive. And I wouldn't do that. And that's the problem with today. People look at all these statues, they're all taking all these Confederate statues down. I'm not saying it's the wrong or right thing to do, but now for 40 years, they're okay. And now all of a sudden it becomes offensive.
Yeah.
We got to take them away.
Yeah.
Don't look at it.
Yeah. I asked the question, what changed?
Yeah, what changed all of a sudden?
Why now?
Now we're bending to people's desires. Well, that doesn't do my heritage. And that's, well, history was much different 100 years ago than it is today. And it was acceptable back then. It's not acceptable now, but we can't change the course of history. It's there what it is. And so there's so much going on that people are internalizing and saying, oh, that affects me, and therefore I don't have the right to look at it. That's a problem in today's society, in my opinion.
What's interesting too is what they are not recognizing is that we are where we are today because of all of the elements of history, all of them, every single second of time that has ticked by since man has been on the planet is the reason why we are where we are right now. And to deny that. Now, do I agree with the messages these symbols evoke? No, of course not. Many of them I don't. I remember when I was going to the Byzantine Catholic Church in Phoenix with my first wife. The Monsignor would go to the houses, I think it was every spring, and he would do a house blessing. He'd come inside and everything. And of course, back then, I was still working for the religious station, and this one question just really bugged the daylights out of me. So I asked him, you see crucifixes, not just a cross, but a crucifix with the image of Jesus on them.
Right.
And he's always wearing a loincloth. But according to historical record, the final indignity of those being crucified was they were stripped naked for all to see. And so after the Monsignor blessed our trailer, which is where we were living at the time, I asked him, I says, why is it that, and I shared with him my findings. I says, why is it that we don't have actual depictions of Jesus up on the cross? I mean, he was naked. Why is he wearing a loincloth? I was dumbfounded, but I was elated by his honest answer. He says, well, we don't want to upset the sensibilities of the people. But yet the first thing that came flooding into my brain was the passage, ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free.
Right.
And we're so ashamed of certain parts of our anatomy that are God-given.
Yeah.
And it's not like we're putting them out there as pornography.
Right.
It's not lurid.
Right.
And so on and so forth. But I was actually quite pleased with his answer. At least it was honest.
Sure.
Coming from a Monsignor within the church.
Yep.
And that, to me, that went a long way for me. That really did. And so even if the answer isn't really that palatable, and that's the thing I don't care for about the institutions that tell us, no, we don't want to tell the people because we don't think they can handle it. Like if there was an asteroid headed for Earth, I want to know. I don't know if you ever saw the movie with Stephen Carell, Looking for a Friend for the End of the Earth, the End of the World.
No, I haven't seen that.
Oh my God, great movie. There is an asteroid headed for Earth. There is nothing anyone can do. Bruce Willis and his team are on vacation, not able to be reached. Those other movies where they go out there and they destroy the thing. And spoiler alert, ladies and gentlemen, the movie ends with the end of the world. But it's the dynamics that take place during that film about his focus on relationship, especially with his father. He goes to his father. They spend that day together. And his father keeps wanting to bring up, well, I know I wasn't the best dad. I don't want to talk about that's not important anymore. All of the dysfunction. He just wanted to connect with his father in these final hours of existence. He just wanted to, similar to what my father's brother did before he died of cancer. He went over to his son's house in his wheelchair, and they had several hours, I guess, of father-son closure before his passing. That to me, that's where the real cultural change comes, and this is what you are really, really talking about.
Yeah, you make a really good point about if what would happen, if the Earth were to end tomorrow or in a week, what would you do differently? How would you react? Your whole perspective thinking would probably change tremendously.
Yeah.
And here's the problem that I see. Whenever anybody is ever afforded a situation that's very traumatic, like a hurricane or tornado or a major fire, whatever it may be, do you know how many people come out and want to help that person or people to recover? They give themselves, they're serving them, they want to do whatever they can to help. And when the hurricane passes, we kind of go back to our normal way of life. Why can't we do that all the time? Why can't we have the ability to help others to make their lives better at all times and not through a major disaster or a major event that might happen in our lives. If we were to do that all the time, then life would be a whole lot better for a lot of people. It shouldn't take a major disaster or an asteroid hitting the Earth to be able to go ahead and do what we need to outreach to others and make their lives better.
Yeah, and that's the point of this program, is to basically look for new paradigms for a new world. As I said before, giving people choices and knowledge of those choices to help make their dreams come true. And we want this for everybody. And I honestly do believe it is possible.
I do too.
You know, and some would say, well, yeah, but Richard, you're talking about a utopia. No, I'm not. Because we will always, because of the universe that we live in, the material world that we live in, we will always have challenges.
Sure.
Okay? Even if we all just got along and everything was rosy dynamically between the members of the species, we would still be dealing with natural issues from Mother Earth, right?
You bet. And I like the fact that you use the word challenge and not problem.
Exactly.
Challenge is something that we can overcome. Problems we don't address. Challenges, we do what we need to do to fix those challenges and make it better. So I like that word.
Yeah. We're talking with Mark Lewis. He is the author of Give a Damn. I keep wanting to throw in Giving a Damn, but it's Give a Damn, so that we can do just that. It is the ticket to cultural change, and it is giveadamnbook.com. giveadamnbook.com. We can say that on the radio.
Yep.
And if you do take offense, I apologize. I'm sorry that you do. I would ask you to consider adjusting, not change, but adjust your perspective just a little bit.
Let me make a point about that, because some people do get offended by the word give a damn or the word damn, right? And so, I was addressing with that. And so my mom passed away about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. And I asked my mom, do you think people would be offended by the word damn? Or even ask God, give me the answer to this. What am I doing? What am I supposed to do? I don't want to offend anybody. And here's the answer I got. The word damn can be used in a negative way and a positive way. I'm using it in a positive way for people to make a change, to get their attention that they need to make a change for the better, to serve others like God served us, like Jesus served us. And my mom gave me the same answer. You're doing it to help others. It's not used in vain. Because some kids could get upset about it, and parents may say, well, Callie, you're teaching kids wrong. I said, no, I'm trying to make a point. God gave me the word damn to be able to use it in a positive way. I'm not doing it in vain, and I need to get people's attention, and this is the way to do it. And that's the answer I got.
Give a darn, give a doorknob just doesn't have the same oomph, No,
but that brings up a point, because when you get with kids, I have 3 follow-on books I want to write. 1 K through 4, 5th through 8th, and 9th through 12th. You graduate. And those books are going to be called Give a Darn. Because I want the kids to understand what it means to give a darn by respect, morals, opening the door for people. How many times do you ever see a man open a door for a lady to open her to get in the car? You rarely see that anymore. And when I see it, it's usually the older generation that's doing it. But those kind of respect and those kind of things are what I'm trying to portray kids at a very young age. Teach them really young.
Yeah.
And then they'll get it and they'll have a better life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, my wife's sister, before her passing, she used to say to me, your mother raised you right. Now, I am at the end of the baby boomer era, born in 1960. That's what I would do, even for my first wife, as well as for my present wife. I open the car door, I open the other doors for her. It's just, for me, that's just the normal course of things. It isn't just about the fact that she is my wife, I hate to use I don't want to use the word my in the possessive sense, okay? Because we're partners, we're a team, and so from that standpoint, she is my teammate, if you will, equal, co-equal, and so forth. But just common courtesy, not just chivalry, that kind of thing. But it was nice to hear her say that, oh, your mother raised you right. Mark Lewis is my guest. We're talking about Give a Damn, and giveadamnbook.com is the website. I also love some of the other a twist on a phrase as well. Oh, shut the front door. I love that one. You know, I don't know if you've ever heard that one before,
Yeah.
but it also has that same, are you kidding me, sir? As opposed to profanity per se that we can't use on the radio.
Right.
We can use it on the internet, but I still like to keep these programs fairly.
Clean.
I don't like to use the blue ink pen. Okay.
Yeah, I gotcha.
I like to keep them clean, as it were. But again, I don't hold that against anyone if that pops up in the
Sure.
program. This is, to me, a conversation as far as whatever circle you are in. It seems to me critical in our day and age that we need to start looking from different perspectives. And I will give you this analogy and have you elaborate as we come to the close of our program here. There is an event that's taking place, and there is a circle around it. And we are to move around this circle onto as many points as possible to get as many different views, I'm going to use that here, as is possible to get the greatest understanding of what is happening in that event. And you can put whatever event you want in there, natural disaster or otherwise. And that is really what the goal of this program is about.
You know, you're doing a really great job because you're bringing out, I think, people's mindset to do a deeper dive into what people are doing and how they're thinking and how they're acting towards other people. And you're really the person that's giving a damn to get them to think about more about perspective thinking, what it means to be in the other person's shoes in a way. And it's not right, it's not wrong, but it's a way for us to communicate, kind of all get on the same page and have a conversation that doesn't blow up into anger or violence, having a conversation that can improve the lives of other people. And that's what the world's all about. What can we do to make life better for other people? Again, why are you here? That's why I'm here. Because if I improve your life, guess what? You feel better about it. I feel good about it, because when I do something good for other people, I feel good. If they have a smile on their face that I've done something different and I've done something very valuable for those people going forward in life. And that's what life needs to be for everybody. And when you do that, the stress level goes down, you feel better, you're doing more things for other people. It's just a better life. I don't know. I can't understand why people don't get it. I wish I could drive that home one person at a time.
I've learned over the last 10 or 15 years a very valuable lesson about that. I've watched a number of different movies. One in particular, which you may or may not have seen, Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I've seen that.
All right. And you know the last 15 minutes of the program, right? Of the movie?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
What are they doing? They're dialoguing.
Yep.
They're conversing.
Yep.
They are beginning to talk to one another, really listening to one another, and then understanding that at the beginning of the movie, where the conflict started, was started over what else? A misunderstanding. Now, I get it from the Hollywood perspective that if they had done that at the beginning of the movie, it would have only been 20 minutes long and a very boring show in and of itself. But that's where we are today. We're not, we have these disagreements, and then we have the conflict. Then we sit down and we talk. Oh, I see. I completely misunderstood what you said. And I should have had a follow-up question to what you said, because I took it this way and you meant it that way.
Right.
Oh, God, it's like, oh my God, such wasted time. And I will quote one of my boyhood idols, singers, Keith Partridge or David Cassidy.
Yeah.
You know what his last 4 words were before his passing?
No.
So much wasted time.
Oh, true. That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So much wasted time.
So sad. So sad. Let's
Yep.
not waste any more time, ladies and gentlemen. Let us continue moving forward. Let's give a damn and work towards using that ticket for cultural change. Starts with us, as Gandhi says, be the change you want to be, and that's the way that opens up. Mark Lewis is my guest here on the program. His book, Give a Damn, giveadamnbook.com. We will be linked to his website as well. It's The Ticket to Cultural Change, and we hope that you will pick up a copy. At least go to his website and check out the work he's doing. You have evolvemedia.ia. Let's talk just briefly about that, if we can, and how that plays into all of this.
I'm an entrepreneur by nature. I've started a number of businesses, and I just got involved with this new venture. What we're doing is, when you have these cell phones, right? And everybody goes to an event and they take videos of the event. It could be a birthday party, a wedding, or whatever. All those videos stay with that individual unless you share it with someone. So what we've done is we've created this software company where we are taking and asking everybody at the event, because all these events, and they're being videoed on all different angles, to upload videos to a cloud-based platform. And what we're going to do is we're going to cut and splice the best of all those videos and create a single video for you based on that event. So if it's a wedding, there's a timeline. We'll take all these videos, cut and splice them, and put together a video for you automatically and autonomously. So we're in that development phase right now. We've got our first MVP, minimal viable product, probably coming out within the next 30 days. We're doing some testing right now, but that's an exciting. At my age of 64, I want to be able to help create lasting memories for people, birthday parties, weddings, baby christenings, sporting events. There's just so many different events, and to take videos which you don't have access to and bring them all together and create a video, could be 2 minutes or 10 minutes, is something we think is very special, because video editing is a very difficult process right now.
Well, I would agree with you. I only started doing video editing as of July 2020, and that's the reason now we're, of course, up on YouTube.
Sure.
And I actually have a blast with it. I have so much fun working with the program I'm currently working with and creating some things. I'm also working with another organization or a group of people, theater. We're doing Zoom theater.
Yeah.
Readings with friends is, I believe, what it's called, and other projects as well. And I'm also producing one of our contributors to this program during the break is a woman by the name of Emily Yurchison, and she has this beautiful book. We've had her on the program before about an odyssey of song. She has 12 different steps that you go through to create your own song. We all have a song, okay? And so what I've done is, for 4 or 5 minutes, she talks about that particular step. I bookend it with the credits, with whatever she wants. Sometimes she'll have a song in the middle, and I'll put images in there that she provides. And for me, when I first started doing it, I thought, oh my God, I would rather just be doing audio because it's so much simpler. And basically what I found was it is as simple as editing audio, from the standpoint that it's just multiple tracks. It's just that some of them are pictures,
sure.
Some of them are sound, some of them are text. It's really, really cool. And so I am in a realm that I never thought I would be in. Although one of these days I'd like to give up all of the other aspects that are in my toolbox to just focus on doing this.
Yeah.
This is all I really want to do, is bring people like you to the forefront, to our listeners and viewers, to understand that there is a better world. Now, and I say that not to say that where we are today is terrible, awful, we got to get out of here. No, 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 no. Right now is a beautiful world, but we could make it even more beautiful tomorrow.
Yeah, we have our challenges, and we need to get through these challenges. We need to work one person at a time to change our perspective thinking, and then take that perspective thinking and let other people know how valuable it is. And you know, through artificial intelligence, just get back to the law of media.ai, we're actually using artificial intelligence and machine learning to create these videos, and we're going to learn more and more and more about how to create these videos. And I think it's pretty substantial, because when you're at a birthday party and you know, the presents, opening the presents, blowing out the candles, and there's a timeline. So we take the best of the timeline and cut and splice from those videos to put as a video automatically. I think it's very special. I don't know why my phone keeps going off.
That's all right. That's very cool. Mark Lewis, I want to thank you so much for giving us this time here on the program and talking about your book, Give a Damn, The Ticket to Cultural Change. I have 3 final questions that I would like to ask you. You may have answered them during the interview, but I like to ask them directly. But before I do, I have to speak to our listeners and viewers and say that you can find us at 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. on Sundays, 1 a.m. on Mondays, and 9 a.m. for the special edition of Tell Me Your Story on Wednesdays. That's 9 a.m. Wednesdays for Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World on this fine station. We stream live at those times as well, as I mentioned, and we're podcasting on SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, Stitcher, Player FM, Blueberry, other locations you folks are reposting to. We're on YouTube as well, and you can watch these interviews. And again, of course, we'll be linked to Mark's website, which in this case is going to be giveadamnbook.com. And we also encourage you, if you can support us financially, we would be gratefully appreciative. I may have worked for 15 years for the Christian radio station, and I heard all of the fundraising gimmicks, and I will never, ever, ever use them. If and or when I can't afford to do this, then we're done. But I don't see that happening for at least 40, 45 years. And when I say that, Mark, you know I was born in 1960. So adding 40 or 45 more years to my life puts me over the 100 mark, and that's where I'm headed.
That's where I'm headed to. I'm right with you. I was born in 57, so I got 3 years on you.
All right, when we cross that line, you know, we'll just do a great fist bump and have a great party, and you can take the video. I also want you to spend time going within, folks, during the decade of perfect vision, the 2020s. Find that still, quiet, peace, calm place, and listen to that still, small voice. So the final 3 questions that I like to ask all of my guests are, in this order, to you. Number 1, who is Mark Lewis?
Oh, my goodness. Okay. I'll give you a short answer. Mark Lewis is a person that cares deeply about other people and wants to leave a mark in this world, no pun intended, that creates a better world for the rest of all the people that are part of the earth today. So my mission is really to create lasting love, peace, kindness, and happiness for people across the world.
What is it that you hope to or want to achieve through the work that you're doing now?
My hope is to create what I call a Give a Damn movement. And the movement is to enjoin everybody who can take what I call the Global Accountability Pledge, which means you can get it on my website, giveadamnbook.com, join the movement, and to create a movement where we all kind of come together, a grassroots campaign that gets the message out that Give a Damn and the philosophy and initiatives behind that movement improve society dramatically.
And finally, what is your life's purpose?
My life's purpose is to serve other people. Bottom line, really, by doing so, I serve myself, but I don't look at it that way. My goal is really to make life better for everybody in this world as best I can, and to make a change. I hope I live long enough to see the change over time that brings society back to where it needs to be, maybe like it was 40 or 50 years ago.
Well, Mark Lewis, thank you again for joining us on the program, and we look forward to your next 3 books, K through 4, 5 through 8, 9 through 12.
Give it, Don. Yes, thanks, Richard. I enjoyed being with you. I appreciate all your support.
And I'm Richard Dugan, thanking you for listening and watching. Tell Me Your Story, New Paradigms for a New World, giving you choices and knowledge of those choices to help make your dreams come true. Until our next broadcast, podcast videocast, Love to Love.